Hello and welcome to Lean Into Green. I'm your host, Jenny Lamorgan, and I'm here today with Katy Farber. And I'll introduce Katy in a little bit, but first I want to tell you about Lean Into Green for those of you listening in for the first time. At Lean Into Green, we learn from some of the best experts in this field. You will discover how going green enriches your life, your health, your wealth, and your happiness in so many important and inspiring ways. And you'll learn the many aspects that your green lifestyle makes many good impacts on the planet and on peace and lasting sustainability. And you'll deepen the way that you understand and experience your own green lifestyle. And that's what Lean Into Green is all about. I'm a green entrepreneur and owner of greenwomanstore.com, and I've learned so much listening to these interviews and talking with these green lifestyle experts. And I know you'll be glad that you've listened in. So let me tell you a little bit about Katy Farber. She is a mom, an author, a blogger, and she's a social media community builder. She's an activist and speaker. Katy teaches graduate-level education courses in service learning, and she founded the blog NonToxicKids.net in 2007. She's chronically sleep-deprived, full of joy, and a lover of spontaneous kitchen dance parties with small children, among other things. You're a busy woman, Katy. Thank you very much, and welcome to Lean Into Green.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here.
All right. We are so glad to have a focus on children and on parenting. Many of the speakers have touched on this subject, but I know that's your focus. So maybe let's start by telling us what inspired your passion for your blog, NonToxicKids.net.
Absolutely. Well, I had both of my daughters within 2 years, and I found myself immersed in this world. I'd always been an environmentalist, and I'd always been really active on environmentalist issues. And so this really quickly broadened into children's health when I was trying to make the best choices I could for my kids. And I was actually on a run when the name just Non-Toxic Kids just sort of floated out of the sky. And I'd always also loved to write and loved the idea of a creative outlet that also dealt with the issues that I thought were really important. And so on that particular run, my oldest daughter was actually just an infant, and I just began that night. And I thought at first maybe I'd run out of things to write about, but as you can see, it's been many years, and there's always so many parenting news items, legislation, environmental news, things to keep track of and to report on and to share, and it hasn't stopped since.
And I think when we do have small children, or at any age, the things that are in the news really do pop out at us. So it's nice to have a place to go to kind of catch up and make sure we haven't missed anything.
Yeah, it's true. That was part of the focus, too, is that I wanted to share with other parents that were struggling to keep up with these things and wanted to make the best choices they could, but were short on time, something that would be really helpful for them.
Very good, because at times such an issue, and it's nice to have somebody else doing some of the research, taking some of the, time and the effort out of getting this information. So there's a lot of mommy bloggers. It's kind of a new profession and a new passion. Can you talk a little bit about how this has impacted your life and how satisfying it must be?
Well, it was, when you're a new parent, it can be really isolating. And I found that I really needed a creative outlet that connected me to the wider world. And that was really important. And, for different people, there are many different things that can serve, that purpose. But I think a lot of women are getting into this because there's a wider community that you can be part of and that you're really finding your own creative voice. And then that's really important. I mean, there's such a wide swath of mommy bloggers or bloggers out there. There's humorists and there's informational folks, and then there's folks like myself and many others that are really issue oriented. And I think it's really incredible. I think it's served a really great purpose to give more women, more mothers, voices on a platform, and that's a lovely and beautiful thing.
And it's very true that when our children are small, our world gets smaller, certainly. And so I can see what you're saying about the feeling isolated. And it's a great way to to be in community. I know that's kind of a common thread through these 21 interviews is that women really are in relationship all the time, whether it's with the environment or with other people or their just every aspect of our life. We really are relational. So I think blogging is such a satisfying way to do that and kind of create that community.
It is. I mean, and for me now that I blog with Moms Rising and Moms Clean Air Force, and these groups of moms that are really working towards significant change. And for me, I found that that's so powerful and so motivating, is to be part of change for the greater good of children's health and the environment.
And really, that it's putting a lot of that consumer pressure on the manufacturers, and we're seeing amazing changes coming in that direction.
That's
something
right.
that we never thought 20 years ago we would ever see. So I think it's wonderful to have, women so present and so upfront and taking such leadership in the world these days. It's certainly world changing. You have written a book called Eat Non-Toxic, a manual for busy parents. Can you tell us about this book and the need for chemical reform? Absolutely.
Well, I had been hearing from readers that so many readers are really interested in how they can protect their kids by limiting, toxic exposures, and so many of the exposures are coming from food and food storage. And so I really wanted to take all the posts that I had done about that and really knit it into one manual that could serve pretty much as a beginner's guide to moving forward and trying to limit the toxins, because we have a lack of federal regulations that are keeping kids safe. And I'd really like to not write books like this. I'd really like to have products and foods that are safe, that are proven safe before they're on store shelves, but that's just not the case right now. So I wanted to create something that was immediately usable and useful for parents.
And when you talk about food storage, I think you're talking about plastics and contamination, kind of cross-contamination into the children's food.
That's right. I'm talking about leaching from almost all plastics. We've heard a lot about BPA in the news, but its replacement, there's BPS, and there's concerns about their replacements. And we're sort of in this cycle in our country where you have a chemical, it's allowed in a product, then scientists prove that it's harmful, then they pull it out, and then we replace it with something else, and it takes a few years for scientists to realize that this new replacement is also harmful. So it's a cycle that needs to be broken by strengthening our chemical legislation, which is currently pending, actually. We need really strong chemical policy reform.
And what do you think is the most important thing we can do, really? It sounds like keeping our foods out of any contact with plastic.
I think that, that parents can start. That's a really good way to start, is just to take a look at what you have, what you're storing your food in, and think about buying some glass to store it in instead. One really affordable choice is just mason jars, right? You just buy they're $8.99 or maybe $7.99 at almost any store, and you can buy those, and you can just start storing some foods in those, like cheese and butter and leftovers, and that's a really, cost-efficient way to begin, just trying to eliminate plastic in your kitchen. It's a great place to start.
Very good. There's so much plastic in children's lives, over the last, 20 years it's certainly increased. So any other ideas about how to reduce plastics in our families?
Oh, absolutely. I think that it's really important for families just to start with small steps. So just pick one thing, because it's so easy to just want to throw up your hands here. So it's a good idea to just start small, such as maybe not buying single-use plastics. That's a great first step. Trying to think about potentially composting, starting a home compost, or even just pondering the amount of packaging that you're purchasing and trying to lessen that. So just picking one or two things and just slowly try to bring them into your consciousness and act on them. One place parents often like to start with is just trying to pack a waste-free lunch for their kids going to school, for their school-age kids. That's something that we can all do, and it doesn't cost too much to do. It just takes a little bit of planning, and that's a lot of waste that can be saved every day in schools. Very good, and it sets a good example for the kids sitting around the table.
That's right. the young people are certainly talking about the subject of environmental awareness and bringing some solutions that we hadn't thought of before. So I think starting at this young age in the schools is amazingly effective. And then they bring the ideas home to the other parents, and it just kind of spreads from there.
That's right.
So anything else in the realm of eating non-toxic for the kids?
Oh, sure. When I think about, really ways to limit chemicals that are coming in the food supply, certainly looking at eating food that is not on the Dirty Dozen list, and I have links to that. That's from the Environmental Working Group, who has put out a list of the produce that has the most pesticide. And that would be the best produce to buy organic for. Not everybody can afford to eat organic all the time. Certainly that is hard. But really just trying to avoid those, you're going to really limit pesticide exposure for your kids. So that's one really good start. And then also thinking about, can you widen that to be eating if you consume meat, thinking about eating antibiotic-free meat, buying from local farmers that you really trust, that's a huge step. And then maybe even broadening it to organic dairy, which is a little bit more expensive, and that can be really hard. So that's why I say just picking one of those things and really focusing on it and doing as much as you can. And it also changes with time. There's going to be some times in family life that you can do some of these things, and then others that you have to back off of it a little bit, and that's okay. It's an ebb and flow, and everybody's just trying, just being more conscious and moving forward.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned the Environmental Working Group. I think I'm going to add that link for...
Oh, that'd be great.
Because I have that app on my phone, and it's very nice when you're in the grocery store. You can just check, and they have the Dirty Dozen, the fruits and vegetables that have the most pesticide use, and then they have the Clean 15. So,
that's right.
It helps you to save some money when you're shopping there.
That's right, and there's surprising things. Like you wouldn't necessarily think a potato would be a problem. But it's on the list. So it's helpful, and so many of us are sleep deprived, and we can't remember what's on the list. I've been there. So it's good to have it on your phone or clipped out or printed out or something.
And have easy access to it.
That's right.
Now you mentioned dairy, and when you're talking about organic dairy, you're talking about lack of pesticides, but it's also that estrogen issue that they're giving the cattle now to produce more milk, and then the estrogen acts like the plastics. And so can you just kind of talk about the advantages of organic dairy, because it's so much cheaper to prevent these diseases than it is to heal them. So please, inform us on the dairy issue.
Well, it's tricky because, for large families, it's really hard to buy organic dairy all the time. But that said, we've got hormone disruptors coming at us from so many places, from receipts and canned goods to dairy products. And so I think that anything families can do to limit hormone disruption, right? And that's happening from multiple chemical exposures. And so lessening those is just a huge step forward in, like you said, preventative health care.
And certainly plastics are among the hormone disruptors.
Absolutely.
Yeah, as are body products and perfumes. And
oh, my goodness. Yes, I just wrote a post for Moms Rising all about 7 reasons to avoid synthetic fragrances, and that just published today. And there's not enough research on this, but there are growing links to all these connections, this sort of chemical cocktail that people are being exposed to, and really not a lot of people are looking at the combined effects of all of these different things, like you're saying, right? Products, body products, food storage products, all of these coming together. And then, of course, we've got all sorts of increasing rates of learning disabilities and increasing rates of children's cancers and things like that, and obesity. So, we've really got to take a wide lens, I think, as far as health goes, and consider this.
And when you're talking about the learning disabilities, I think that the issue of perfumes in the classroom, I know I've gone to visit classrooms, and the teachers wearing this horrendous, artificially contrived fragrance, and they do mess with our neurotransmitters. And for children whose brains are developing and cells are reproducing at such a fast rate, I just worry about the perfumes themselves being issues with some of these learning disabilities, and giving the kids a harder time than they really need to have sometimes. I wish they would ban them in classrooms.
I do too. I mean, there's growing allergies. There's many more allergies to synthetic fragrances in our country now. It's growing in children, and you can see why. And students who already have asthma, synthetic fragrances really can test their systems, which are already fragile.
Right. All right. Any other green living tips for families with small children?
I would say also just consider the amount of consumption. I think that kids are so creative, and they probably don't need half or more of the toys that they do have in their house. And we've learned that in our family, and we really try. It's hard, but we really do try to limit what comes into the house and to really just think about all of our levels of consumption. And that, you can work on that with your wider family. Like maybe instead of, some sort of plastic set toy for the holidays, maybe it's a class that they get, or an experience, or a weekend or trip with their grandmother. I mean, I think we need to think a little bit more about experiences and meaningful creativity versus more things.
That's a great suggestion. That's really good. So please talk about what you're calling service learning. You have a book, Change the World with Service Learning, How to Organize, Lead, and Assess Service Learning, and I don't know what that term means, so please educate us.
Absolutely. I'm a classroom teacher. I teach sixth grade here in Vermont, and I learned a lot about this approach probably over a decade ago, and what it is kids learning about their community, finding a problem that they wish to solve, and then designing a way to solve it or to begin to solve it. So, for instance, in my class, we've taken an entire day of trash from the school, and we've taken tarps and gloves, and we've dumped out the trash, and we've analyzed it. What's in it? What are people throwing away? How can we lessen the waste? And then, of course, talk to the kids about, showing them pictures of landfills and talk about why solid waste is a problem. And the kids really, they get to learn about it themselves, and then they go into groups based on their interest, and they focus on developing some sort of solution. So maybe it's a handbook for the school, or maybe another group visits the classrooms and they discuss the fact that maybe there's not enough recycling, or maybe they set up a composting program. I mean, that's something that we started at our school, and then we partnered with a local solid waste management municipality to set up a formal program, and we're still working on that today, a decade later. So it's kids trying to find ways to connect with the community to improve it. And then this changes the perception of everybody about children and teenagers particularly, because they see them. They see them out in the community. They're talking to people. They're connecting. There's more support for the schools. And what you end up doing is having students work in these groups, and they're monitored through their reflection, through the project that they're creating, and then at the end of any project, we have a community celebration. And so you invite the local school community to come in and see what the kids have done. And it's really transformative. It can change the way that the kids see themselves, certainly. They learn these problem-solving skills of complex issues. And then there's always all sorts of great content knowledge that happens as well, and they learn about themselves as leaders. And really the teacher then becomes more of a facilitator and a connector in the community. And it's just a really powerful learning tool that I've used. And so this book is an attempt to help teachers use this tool in a way that won't overwhelm. It's really a manual for teachers to guide them in how to use service learning to do what they're already doing, okay, to not be another thing on their plate, but to take what they need to teach in their content area and to devise some sort of service learning project from it.
And I think teachers are always looking for experiences that will teach the kids, kind of take them out of the textbook and into the world a bit more. So this is wonderful. I'm glad I've learned about it.
It's a really powerful learning tool, and more colleges are doing it nowadays. I mean, it's really spreading out, and it's quite extraordinary when you see what kids can do in this capacity. And
at all ages, it sounds like.
Oh yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And in the book, there are examples for every content area and every age group, usually starting around third grade and up. But certainly you could find service learning projects even for the primary set. It's really just connecting and reflection, and kids really learning from and leading in their own communities.
That's wonderful. As the world moves toward acknowledging, scientifically the connections between all things, I think this is a great way to introduce them. It's scientific. It's biological. All right, very nice. And now you also, and it sounds like a great book for gift giving for the teachers as well. We're always looking for teachers' presence. So
it's really meant to be for teachers to help them to do these kind of projects. It's loaded with things that you can copy right away and use to help develop portfolios for students. I mean, that's really what I wanted to do.
And there's a lot of homeschooling going on now too. So and there's a lot of community within that homeschooling atmosphere. So it sounds like it has a reach there as well. Now you have another book focused toward teachers. It's Why Great Teachers Quit. And you're talking about teacher sustainability here, and we all love our great teachers. What might we do to stop the exodus of these amazing men and women in our communities?
Yes, the idea for this book came from, I had a mentee. She was a new teacher. She was in her second year, and she quit. And I was devastated by that, and I thought, what is wrong with our system, that this is happening? And I quickly found out that in the first 5 years of teaching, we have upwards sometimes of 50% of teachers quitting. So it's really systemic. And so for me, I sunk into the literature. I also conducted over 70 interviews nationwide of teachers who had quit, and many master teachers as well who had stayed. And I found lots of themes from that. Some are that we need really very, very deep and rich mentor programs for new teachers. This can't be just you meet every month and it's somebody in another school that you're not really connected too much with. This needs to be a very well-planned and well-thought-out mentorship program. And that's one thing. And ideally at multiple levels. A group of new teachers that you can talk with on a regular basis and a master teacher that you can talk with on a regular basis and be in touch with. These cannot, the power of these kind of programs cannot be understated in supporting new teachers. So that's one thing. I also think that we've been really focused in our country on standardized testing, and almost it's very isolating, and it can breed competition. And that's not good teaching. Good teaching is about collaboration. It's about cooperation. It's about constant growth and improvement through working together. So we've got to set up these learning environments, these communities where teachers are helping each other, and they're constantly talking about how to best meet the needs of students, while also thinking about how to improve themselves and also have a balance, of their own lives. And I think that's really hard to do, but it needs to be fostered, and it's powerful work that we need to do as a nation if we're going to keep great teachers in the classroom.
Very good. And you're really a problem solver, and you like to do the research, it sounds like, too. To kind of dig into these issues. So
I do.
Well, thank you very much, because I think it's, our teachers are kind of they're on the front lines, really. I mean, that's our future that they work with every day. So
they do, and I think we need to really bring in humanity for students, but also humanity for teachers. I mean, we've got some really horrible working conditions that we must improve, and we must consider the teacher in that equation.
All right. One of your blogs is about how President Obama's plan on climate change will protect our children's health. Can you talk about the important aspect of environmental action in our country?
Well, absolutely. I mean, specifically about climate change, we've had world scientists sounding the alarm about this issue for years, and we've seen links to extreme weather, to increasing air pollution, increasing rates of asthma and preventable death. And then there's heavy metal pollution in our air, it's in our water, and it's more often in our food. And so, climate change is a children's health issue. We really need to think about it, I think, through that lens. We need to protect our kids from this significant pollution that comes from climate change. And so I think looking at it through that lens is going to help more people take action and understand it. And then there's also the cost that we're going to saddle our kids with. So thinking about it in that way, as we just had heard, the head of the EPA discussing that, okay, and as far as looking at it as a parent, that's really powerful. So that's one area that I think that once we look at it through that lens, I think we're going to see more movement about that. And I also think that people can take action on all of these issues really very quickly. I mean, it doesn't take tons of hours to do the research and to really dig into an issue if you don't have it. Certainly, if you have the time and want to do that, which I like to do, certainly that's great. But you have a 20-minute nap that you have that time and you want to reach out in the world, you can go to great activist sites like Moms Rising and Moms Clean Air Force, Safer Chemicals, Healthy Families. These are places that have wonderful information, lots of it to share, and then ways to be active and to support the issues that you feel passionate about.
Very good. That's an important piece of the climate change puzzle that I had not heard before. So thank you very much for putting it front and center for us. Because I think if it's wrapped in language that we can understand personally, then we can, like you said, then we can dig in and lean in a little deeper.
Right.
Thank you. All right. So you have done a lot of work, and your blogs are full and of just amazing information and really exciting changes that are taking place too, and inspiring changes. Is there anything else you want to share with us today?
I just that we can and do have an impact as parents, and that we are making great progress, and that I would love to encourage folks to get involved, to pay attention, to organize, and to act around the issues of children's health, because we can and are making a difference. And so I would invite anybody to contact me or to go to any of those nonprofit organizations that I mentioned and to just join me in this. It would be terrific.
All right, and we can join your blog. We can sign up for.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes,
yep, I have a newsletter at NonToxicKids.net, and I'm posting there quite often, so I would be thrilled for folks to come on over, and it's so great when people can leave a comment or send in a question, and then we can interact that way. Also, a Facebook page for Non-Toxic Kids that a lot of people post questions and things on, and that's a great place to just visit real quickly and share information on. So I'm always putting up links to different children's health issues. Sometimes I can't blog about all of them, but I can interact about a lot more issues on the Facebook page.
Okay, great, and that's a good way to be able to share. That's an easy way to share it with our own community and circle of friends as well. So. Excellent. All right. So we have some links up for Katy Farber's work on her website. Again is non-toxickids.net, and she has a free 10 tips for healthy, non-toxic free road trips with children. And it says this summer, but I think we're always taking road trips. So I think that's an amazing little chunk of wisdom. And then we also have a link for Katy's books. You've heard something about them, and I think they're all wonderful tools for our own families and certainly for gift giving. So her website, again, is non-toxickids.net, and we're going to put up a link also for her newsletter and her Facebook page. So thank you very much. Katy Farber is available for writing projects and social media support for environmental, health, and feminist nonprofits and green small businesses. So thank you, Katy, very much for joining us at Lean into Green.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. It was really great to be on with you today.
All right, and thank you for all your great work that you've done and the work you're going to keep on doing in the future, it sounds like. All right, and thank you to all of you for joining us at Lean into Green. Going green is a journey. It's a personal journey and a collective one. and you may want to invite your family and friends to listen in as well. Our experts provide a wealth of information as well as tips and tools for going green. I hope you'll take the time to make leaning into green a priority in your life, and I hope that we have inspired you today to go green in many new and rewarding ways. Keep listening as we all lean into green a little deeper on our collective quest toward sustainability.